I'm going to Kansas City. If I could, I could. I'm going to Kansas City.
Welcome everybody to another episode of Chopping It Up with the Cleavers. My name is Emmanuel Cleaver III.
And I'm Emil Cleaver the First.
Come on, man. Every Tuesday we drop a new episode. Subscribe to our YouTube channel, Chopping It Up with the Cleavers, or check us out most places you get your podcast. So the world is in mourning over the death of Queen Elizabeth II, and the funeral was telecast all over the world, and a lot going on. But I wanted to talk about the royal family. So let me just ask you, why do you think Americans love the British royal family? And notice what I'm saying, not the American royal family, but Americans seem to absolutely love the British royal family when they're not the only royal family. There are 26 monarchies in the world and others in Europe. You have some in Africa and Asia, places like Norway and Sweden. But we, in the United States, seem to be just captured by the British royalty.
Well, because America is pretty much was birthed out of Britain.
Pretty much.
That's one reason. Another reason, I think they just had the best fairy tales.
You think?
Growing up, they just told the best fairy tales and all that, and people, I think they know how to glamorize the royalty, the royaltiness of their monarchy. I don't know. I mean, it is pretty unbelievable that Americans, that we do love it, and it's even more unbelievable that Black Americans love the royal family, which is fascinating to me. And
well, I mean, it's like you said, it is a fairy tale. So when you grow up listening and reading, watching these fairy tales about the princess and the prince coming along and marrying this woman and, taking her with Cinderella, taking her out of poverty, taking her out of an abusive family life. Yes. And, so it does have a lot to do with fairy tale. But you brought up black people.
Yeah, I did bring up black people because I am one.
Okay. So speaking of the British royal family, one, I did read that over 40% of minorities, colored minorities in the UK, say they experience discrimination.
Only 40?
Well, it could be more. Some people don't even recognize because it's ingrained in society. That some people, sometimes it's even hard to recognize. But here's the thing that nobody's talking about. I had nothing against Queen Elizabeth II and all of that. But when it comes to the royal family, they have a net worth of $34 billion. $34 billion
That's a lot
in
of
assets.
Money. That's good.
What no one seems to talk about a whole lot is a lot of that wealth was gained as a result of slavery.
Yes, it was.
And colonization.
The number one colonizers. They're number one, ranked number one of all time of colonizers.
Absolutely. At one point, the British Empire was the largest in terms of landmass in world history. The largest in world history. So, I don't know if we ought to celebrate it. They've never apologized that I know of.
No.
And, if they really want to make amends, how about they give some of that land to some of the minorities that seem to be discriminated against? I know. What's funny? I know. Yeah. I already know what you're laughing, but go ahead and say it.
They're not going to do that.
Why not?
They're going to just give land away. Nobody gives up power. Nobody gives up land. That's not going to happen. There's too many dukes, and I don't know what's under the dukes.
I don't know, man.
They're not going to just let you give that land away. They're going to give it to us. You got a new king. Excuse me. He's been waiting to be king for a long time.
Yeah, but that's the thing about it. You can give away some of their assets and or just sell it. Sell it and give the proceeds to make up for the slavery that was a part of. And I think the slavery in the British Empire started with Queen Elizabeth I. So why not make amends for the brutality?
Now that sounds like a fairy tale.
Yeah. The United States hasn't done it, but we don't have people who are living comfortably who really, I'm sorry, we might get canceled after this show because people love the royal family.
Yes.
But $34 billion in assets, and they really don't do anything.
You can't, they don't run the country.
Right.
They do stuff, but.
Yeah, but it's mostly ceremonial.
They
might do, I know the monarch, so it'd be the king now meets regularly with the prime minister, but at the same time,
if they want to have kings, they can do whatever they want to. We just need to be worried about our country, because we almost had a dude that was trying to be king.
Almost. It's not like it's over.
Well, so yeah, we just need to worry about our country. Not saying that forget everywhere else, but stop worshiping these kings and queens and everything else that haven't apologized for slavery. But there's a group from Ghana that'll be here next week. They'll be at the Bruce Watkins.
All right.
A group from Ghana and some chiefs, and they're going to come over and formally apologize for their part in the slave trade.
Okay.
At least we got one. I know they didn't, when they participated, they had no idea that it was going to be a lifelong centuries of slavery,
generation after generation.
They had no idea it was going to be like that. I don't think anybody
could have foresaw or foreseen, the brutality of the transatlantic slave trade. I think, slavery has existed in this world for thousands of years. But what happened here in North America, and not just North America, because we can't forget about Brazil, but it took slavery to a whole new level because, just the brutality.
America's number one in slavery. Number one of all time.
You think? Brazil had more slaves than, more African slaves were sent to Brazil than in the United States. But you're saying the United States perfected it.
I didn't say the United States. I said America.
Okay. Yeah, you're right. The Americas. You are right. The Americas did perfect it. So, the royal family, okay. I'm sorry to hear about,
of course,
Queen Elizabeth.
Loss is terrible.
Yeah, so, that is terrible. But, just when I was hearing the news about how much money they had, how much land, and then just reading, you don't have to do a whole lot of research. But a lot of that wealth is a result of slavery.
Of course.
And colonization, because they were the best in world history at it. So I just think that needs to be talked about. I don't know that they ought to be celebrated as much as they are.
No, they shouldn't.
If you want some fantasies, look at some of these other monarchs where they didn't participate in the transatlantic slave trade. Because there are
Africa.
some. Yeah, they have at least two monarchs in Africa on the continent. So use that as a fairy tale. Speaking of fairy tales, so the trailer for The Little Mermaid came out.
Oh my goodness!
And it was Halle Bailey, black woman, playing Ariel, the Little Mermaid, and people went berserk.
People went crazy.
Absolutely.
Over a fairy tale. If you haven't heard, Halle Bailey is like you said, a black woman, young black woman. The Little Mermaid apparently was originally a white woman.
You said apparently. Yeah, it was.
So, but the key word is this is a fairy tale. This is make-believe. So, I saw some posts where white people were putting up saying, that would be like
A white man playing Shaft.
Matt Damon playing Martin Luther King, or I did see that.
No, that's
They
not the
got
same thing.
ridiculous that, but
That's not the same thing because Martin Luther King,
is a real person.
the Little Mermaid. I would just ask them, can you describe the Little Mermaids that you know, and maybe we'll base the character.
It's not real. I'm sorry. I hate to tell anybody out there that's watching, it's not. Mermaids aren't real. Now, if mermaids were real, let me just keep it real. This is scientifically
Right?
proven.
Yeah, go ahead and talk about it.
If mermaids were real, they would be black because of all the black women that were pushed overboard during the transatlantic slave trade. I mean, so all those black women, they were down there, they figured a way to survive. So, I mean, if there are mermaids, they're probably black. They're probably
Yeah,
black.
or you could say, if there are real mermaids, they ain't white or black. They got scales, and you wouldn't be making movies about the real ones.
Yeah, that'd probably be.
So
it's probably more
and
realistic.
all realistic.
Realistic. And if the mermaids were real, they'd probably be some hideous creatures. We'd be scared of them. We'd be terrified of them.
Right.
Of real
People would be afraid to dive down. But here's something else I heard somebody say. This is hilarious. That people aren't upset that Little Mermaid was black. People are upset. Watch this. That it wasn't someone with red hair, and that red hair women are often discriminated against.
No, nobody said
Yeah,
that.
I promise.
Nobody said that.
Okay.
Nobody said
All right.
that.
Okay.
Her hair isn't red. I don't know. I mean, I thought she was.
Yeah. She's not a real redhead.
Okay.
That's what they're saying.
So, the cartoon, this cartoon character had red hair.
Right.
And so, I see. It's discrimination. People, we need to get a life.
That's what it is.
Yeah, I think people need to get a life. I mean, there's so many things going bad. We can go to school shootings. We can go to murders everywhere, mass murders. I mean, let's start with the murders. We're too concerned with nonsensical things. The Little Mermaid is one. I don't understand Americans. We have maybe just too much leisure time.
Yeah. Too much leisure time, too much TV. I just don't understand how somebody can get upset about a cartoon. Next thing you know, if you have a green Smurf, people are going to say, well, the real Smurfs are blue.
The real Smurfs are blue.
Papa Smurf didn't really have a beard in real life. So, yeah. So, get a life, people,
Yeah, that's what we had to say about that.
and enjoy the movie. If you like The Little Mermaid, then you're going to like this.
It's fairy tale.
I mean,
it's not
yeah,
real.
enjoy it. Don't get caught up in that, because there are some things that you should be concerned about, such as
Like what?
an NBA owner who owned the Phoenix Mercury and the Suns, Robert Sarver, who was suspended and fined $10 million for racist and a sexist work environment and pornographic emails. Now, from what I understand, the pornographic emails was of his wife. So if she doesn't mind and he doesn't mind, okay, still not appropriate at work. Just show your friends your naked wife on your own time.
But the issue was, let's get to the issue of the N word. So one of the players, now, correct me if I'm wrong, one of the players said the N word, and he's wondering why he can't say the N word. The NBA players are saying it all the time on the floor, and he wants to know why he can't say it. How come I can't say it? How come I can't use the N word?
Well, Bob, why do you want to say it?
Because I want to call you guys N words.
Well, one, we know that you already do. That's just one incident. So, I mean, yeah, that's true, but that's just one incident. It was a part of his work environment, sexist and racist comments. But yeah, he wanted to be able to say it, didn't understand. But that's a conversation that a lot of people are having. So if you're listening to DMX and you're white and you're quoting, you're rapping right along with DMX, and I'm just throwing out DMX. It can be anybody, Tupac, Biggie. When they come to the N-word part, if you're white, are you not supposed to say that?
Yeah, I don't think you can get mad at him for saying that. I mean, it's part of the song. So,
if you're wanting everyone to buy it, and you want people to enjoy the music,
and they do,
you know,
you can
you're
name any
saying
top rapper, any of the top rappers or R&B singers. I mean, just about today. I mean, so you can't say white people can't use the word if it's in the most popular song on the radio.
Yeah, we're just supposed to go, that, and then pick the song back up. I mean, if you want them to buy it, you want them to know the music, go to the concert, you want them to sing along. I don't know. I know a lot of people disagree with that, but Robert Sarver wasn't trying to quote lyrics. He just wanted to say it.
Yeah, what up, my N-word? How you N-words doing? How did you N-words lose that game?
So, but I'm sure, so the NBA just fined him and suspended him, but the players union, they're calling for his permanent removal. And then PayPal, I guess, is one of the sponsors of the Phoenix Suns and Mercury. They're saying they're going to leave if he's not fired. So you know it's going to happen. It's going to happen now.
Yeah, I'm sure it's just a matter of time.
Yeah, because the players union, they can complain, but all he would say is, "Oh, that's just a bunch of N-words."
Yeah, but now
when
you got
money,
that PayPal.
money was lost. What movie was that from? Money was lost. There's nothing we could do once money gets involved. Once it's like this in the movie.
That's a mafia movie. Hold on, it'll come to me.
Come on, man. Come on, man. All right. So we'll see what happens with him. I would say just go ahead and get rid of him. It's funny, these people who own NBA teams are, because he wasn't the first one.
That was Sugar Hill.
Yeah, Sugar Hill. So when these owners, like I said, he wasn't the only one, the LA Clippers owner who didn't like black people except black women, because he was dating one
which is a very common thing, by the way. Let's make that clear.
Yeah, go back to slavery. I mean, they would beat the
Thomas Jefferson
people. Yeah, I mean, yeah, people don't acknowledge his abuse. But yeah, so he was dating a black woman who was about 70 years younger than him. But I'm sure she loved him.
Dave Chappelle told a good joke about that.
I'm sure she loved him.
Yeah, right.
So, Robert Sarver wasn't the first one, but they own these teams that are predominantly black.
Yes.
And they seem to have a problem. That goes, I mean, it seems like just slavery.
Yeah. Straight up slavery.
We own these teams. I don't like them.
They make us a lot of money, but we don't like them.
I don't like them. But yeah, I'm going to use them so I can continue to making my money. I would say get rid of them. Maybe because especially the NBA, but I mean you can go to the NFL and other sports teams. Maybe you ought to have a racist exam before somebody can own a team. I mean,
but who's going to give it to him?
I know.
Commissioner?
I know. That's just make believe. That's fairy tale. That's the same as a mermaid. But I wonder how many owners do have that kind of attitude. I mean, they might be friendly.
A lot of them.
But because, if we're real honest, we're talking about the royal family and their wealth. I mean, there's a lot of folk in this country, in the United States of America, who have wealth that's been passed down from generations
to generations
made
from slavery
as a result of slavery.
We can name some of these families.
Yeah, I mean, it a lot of them. You look at all you have to do is look at old money. Families that have had money for generations, and it's a good possibility they benefited somehow from slavery.
Yeah, and you could take these slave money families who are billionaires, and you take 300 million. You can give every person in America $1 million, and they would still have 700 million left. That's how rich some of these people are. There are 300 million people in America. If you gave, plus, if you gave, you have billionaires who got this money from slavery, who could give every American $1 million, and it wouldn't wouldn't affect him it wouldn't affect him at all.
Yeah, not all of them.
Not all of them
not
got
all
their
of
money
them.
from
Yeah.
slavery, but a lot of
You got to look at what they call old money.
yeah. Old money is the best money is what they say. I don't know.
Because they probably have ways of hiding money. So we don't know who. I mean, what's his name? Elon Musk is supposed to be him or Jeff Bezos.
No, they're not. I can tell you, the richest person in the world, we don't know who they are. I mean,
That's what point I was getting to.
they don't want you to know.
Yeah, I mean, these folk who have had money for a while, they have ways of hiding it. They know what to do. They would probably look at people like Elon Musk and Jeff Bezos like that's new money. They out here showing, telling people how much money they have. But anyway, a lot of it, I mean, we know has been made as a result of slavery. There are a lot of institutions. I mean, It's been talked about. You talk about reparations. All you have to do is look at these corporations that benefited from slavery, but it's not going to happen. It's not going to happen. So that's just a fairy tale. Another thing that's going on in the news is we have governors like Ron DeSantis and Greg Abbott who are taking migrant people who cross the border and sending them all over the country to these sanctuary cities and telling these mayors, like in Chicago, you deal with it. But your boy, Greg Abbott, actually sent migrants to Vice President Harris's house.
Yeah, I saw that.
That's crazy. So here's what I would say to
that should be illegal.
you think? You think it should be
a law
illegal?
against that?
What I would say to DeSantis and Abbott is, man, these are human beings.
They don't even think like that.
They're completely.
This is a
detached.
political game. Yeah,
all
that
it
shows
is.
you they are detached from reality, from the average human being walking on this planet. I mean, they're just going to play with people's lives like this.
Now, it is true that according to Newsweek, border crossings are up under Biden. So, I mean, something has to be done. The federal government and these states, these border states, I mean, really, there has to be some kind of deal, some kind of plan. I know some will say these migrants are fleeing persecution because they're not just from South America. They're flying from Asia and countries in Africa and crossing over from the Mexico border. But I've heard some on the left. If you watch the news, you'll think all these migrants are fleeing persecution. And that is true. There are a great deal who are just trying to find a better life. If you listen to the right, you would think all these migrants are drug dealers. And there have been a lot of drug busts. The largest fentanyl bust in American history happened recently. So it's a little bit of both. I would say more than the drugs is people trying to find a better life.
I would agree with that.
More than the drugs.
More than likely. I mean,
But-
most of those people are just trying to find a better life.
Right. And you don't claim to be the land of opportunity and then not give people opportunity. Change the slogan if we're not going to be the land of opportunity. But DeSantis and Abbott, I mean, you got to understand these are human beings. Go down and talk to some of these folk, these children.
That's never going to happen.
I know they're not, because all they're trying to do is
Win points with their base.
That's it. But
Just win points with the base. I mean, in a way, those immigrants are kind of lucky that they're in Martha's Vineyard, the ones who got to sit to Martha's Vineyard.
well, they're still not. They're not living in the lap of. I mean,
I know that. I know that. But I mean, it's better than coming to Kansas City when it's about to be freezing here in a few. Well, I guess it gets cold there too.
Yeah. Although we're experiencing an unusual September.
Yes.
This is not usual. The temperature, the highs are usually in the mid 80s, and on Monday, it got up to hundreds in some parts of the city. So
it's hot out there today too.
Climate change, but you can keep denying it if you want.
Yeah, we need to make a special on climate change because I mean it seems like everything that I'm seeing on it is getting pretty bad. I mean, we don't have much longer before we're going to start seeing some major. The majority of people are seeing these changes. I mean, we already see the changes.
Yeah. But I mean, some drastic change. So what's being done now, we have to do more. I mean, it's not enough. So some drastic changes have to happen. But here's my lesson, our message to Ron DeSantis and Greg Abbott. Get a heart. Go see the Wizard of Oz, the Wiz. You need a heart, man. Yeah. I mean, for real. For real. Because what you're doing is absolutely ridiculous.
It's obvious you don't have one.
Yeah, no.
And too bad you can't take a test to see if you have a heart before you can become governor.
A lot of tests should be taking place.
Yeah, I mean, in a high position like that, you should take a lot of tests.
Yeah, no, you're right. I mean, we already talked about running for Congress or any office. You need to take a basic test. If we did that, we'd have a lot of people that would be unqualified to run. One of the candidates for the race in Atlanta or Georgia would be unqualified to run if there were tests.
We're not going to say his name. He's a former football player.
Marjorie, your girl Marjorie, she would not be able to run because she wouldn't pass a test.
Yeah, she believes in space with lasers and all that type stuff.
Yeah. So a heart test just to see if you have compassion. But it is funny that the two governors, looking at the states, got love for Texas and Florida. We got people in both. But it seems like a lot of stuff happens in Florida and Texas. Politically.
That's where our family's from, Texas. So we're not putting Texas down. We go there every year, and
But the elected officials,
the elected officials or something
in
different.
those offices. So vote them out, please.
Yeah,
because DeSantis is going to try to be president.
Yes, he is.
And if he's president,
is a serious threat.
Yeah, no,
it's a serious possibility.
We cannot allow that dude to be president. It would be devastating. And the Department of Justice is doing investigations in several police departments. So they did it in Kansas City, Kansas. It was announced on Monday.
Yeah, you see, they got that rapist.
Yeah. I mean, that's real. A rapist on the force. And a lot of people don't know. Someone in the Kansas City, Kansas Police Department apparently was Jack the Raper.
Yeah, he was using his badge to rape black women.
And that was the result of the Department of Justice coming in. So now it was announced on Monday the Department of Justice is investigating Kansas City Police Department and some of their practices. I've had conversations with a lot of officers in KCPD under the last chief, and there was a mass exodus, a lot of mistreatment. And the reason I bring that up is because if someone like DeSantis is elected president, those investigations, they're going to stop. They're going to stop. There's no way he's going to continue and be on board to have police departments investigated, even though there's serious cause to do that. So make sure you register.
Register to vote.
Register. Today.
Vote in Texas and Florida and Georgia.
Missouri, everywhere.
Everywhere, but
yes.
Man, Herschel that football player in Georgia, he has a good chance.
Man.
And he admitted today that he was a moron.
Well, he said that he's not that smart when he talked about
the debate.
We know that,
Herschel.
But listen, but his campaign said he was just.
Nah, I'm just playing.
Yeah, but he wasn't playing.
No,
he knows.
Yeah, he knows.
Anyway, it'll be interesting. Well, of course, we're going to talk about the debate after it happens next month.
If it happens.
Yeah, I'm sure he could possibly find a way to get out.
Yeah, of course.
So for boxing fans, big news has happened.
Big news, finally.
Something that boxing fans have been waiting for a few years. Errol Spence Jr. and Terrence Crawford have agreed for a potential mega fight on November 19th. So for those who don't know, these we're talking about the welterweight division. Errol Spence, not Earl. I hear a lot of people, black people calling him Earl. His name is Errol. Errol Spence is the IBF. Well, let me back up and say there are 4 major belts in boxing. 4 major belts: the IBF, WBC, WBA, and WBO.
And then there's the Ring magazine, which is not a belt, but technically the Ring magazine, because there's so much politics with those belts, the Ring magazine will pick who they believe is the best welterweight best champion out of all those 4 belts.
Yes. So we know the 2 best welterweights in the world are Errol Spence and Crawford.
No doubt about it.
And Errol Spence holds the IBF, WBC, and WBA belts. And Terrence Crawford owns the WBO belt. And they are going to fight for the undisputed. That means there's no question on who the best welterweight is.
Now, these are 2 fighters that are probably going to be Hall of Fame boxers already. So these are, this is as big as it gets. This is Floyd Mayweather and Pacquiao, except in their primes.
Right. That was the problem with
big
Pacquiao.
difference.
Yes.
These guys are fighting in their primes, and Pacquiao and Mayweather fought years after their prime, but this is in their prime. And so in honor of this big fight, we decided to do a top 5. What is it? The best fights?
Biggest, I'd say our biggest fight.
Biggest fights. Well, you can't say biggest because you can look on pay-per-view and they'll tell you.
Well, just at the time. Yeah, not so I'm talking beyond pay-per-view significance.
Okay.
Because not the best fights. Some of the best fights weren't necessarily huge fights, like Mickey Ward and.
So that's what I thought you were talking about, the best fights. So most of my other fights are monumental, historic, except number 5. I'm gonna have to take off Diego Corrales and Jose Luis Castillo. So
okay,
I'm gonna add another one on there.
Okay, I'll go and you can find yours.
Number 5.
So I'm doing the biggest or most significant
That's
fights.
what I'm gonna do too now.
Biggest, most significant fights, and it was a tough one.
Yes, it was.
So I'm gonna start, and people might get mad because this is number 5, but number 5 I have Joe Louis, the Brown Bomber, and Max Schmeling 2, which happened in 1938. Now, why this was significant was because Max Schmeling had beaten Joe Louis earlier. The belt wasn't on the line.
It was a big upset.
It was a big upset, and Max Schmeling became a big hero. He was German, so of course
we were at war.
Adolf Hitler, not quite. The war started the year after their second fight, but I mean there was when Hitler and the Nazis, all that propaganda. So Max Schmeling became a hero. Joe Louis would eventually win the heavyweight belt. Back then, there was only one belt. And then...
That's funny.
Right. It was true. It made things simpler. But then he was... they scheduled to fight Max Schmeling, Joe Louis 2, 1938. And Joe Louis completely destroyed Max Schmeling in round 1. And Joe Louis became a national hero. He's still treated like a Negro. Don't make no mistake about it.
He died broke, just so you know.
He did die broke. He was a national hero. How's a national hero going to die broke? That's another story. That's another story. But it was huge because the war, World War II, was imminent when that second fight happened. So, of course, Max Schmeling going back home, losing to a Negro, was bad, but Max Schmeling and Joe Louis actually became friends. Number 4 happened in 1974. You've seen it in movies. It's called The Rumble in the Jungle, and that happened in Zaire. So what made this significant? 1, it was done by boxing's first black promoter. Boxing's first black promoter, Don King. And it was the first world championship on African soil. But looking at the fight itself, that's the historical significance. But looking at the fight itself, Muhammad Ali was a huge underdog because Muhammad Ali fought Joe Frazier and lost.
It's boxing math for you. It doesn't work. It doesn't add up.
Right, yeah, boxing, yeah. And Muhammad Ali had fought Ken Norton. Now, they had 3 fights. And some people believe Ken Norton won all 3 of those fights.
Yes, and if you watch those fights and turn the sound off, you might think that as well.
Boxing and I guess MMA, those are sports where everyone in the world can think one person wins, but it doesn't matter. It only matters with those three judges, and those three judges might be blind and senile. We don't know. But Muhammad Ali had close fights with Ken Norton. He lost to Joe Frazier. He actually lost the first fight to Ken Norton. But your boy, George Foreman annihilated Joe Frazier.
Man.
And he brutalized Ken Norton. So when it was announced that Muhammad Ali was going to fight this killer destroyer of worlds, nobody gave Muhammad Ali a chance. Of course,
not even the people in his corner.
Right, they were terrified. But of course, Muhammad Ali did the rope-a-dope, wore George Foreman out, won the fight. It was a huge, huge upset. Number 3, I have is another Muhammad Ali fight, and it happened March 8, 1971. Ali and Frazier won. And why this is significant was because Muhammad Ali had been stripped of his title. He was heavyweight champion, and he never lost the championship. But because he refused to go to war and fight an unjust war, he was stripped. Joe Frazier would become the champion. So this would be the first time in history that 2 undefeated heavyweight champions, because Muhammad Ali was, many people would still consider him the champion, but it was the first time that they fought for an undisputed heavyweight title. 2 undefeated fighters. Now, of course, in that first fight, Ali would
Left
get
hook
his first
Larry.
Yeah, man. Joe Frazier landed that left hook late
Dropped
and won. And so he won the fight.
He was winning the fight anyway.
Yeah. And of course, they would go on to have 2 more fights. So that's number 3. Number 2 happened June 11th, 1982. This was the champion, Larry Holmes, was taking on what the media deemed as the Great White Hype. Now, this was the second Great White Hype.
The first one was with Jack Johnson.
No, that's my, come on. No. What else could be number 1? Anyway, so it happened in 1982, but just the disrespect for Larry Holmes in this fight. One, this was the most expensive fight up to that point, 1982, and race or racism was clearly an issue. You can Google it. Google the build up to the fight. On the cover of Sports Illustrated, it had a picture of Jerry Cooney, and it says, the challenger, or who do you have? The challenger or ... Think about that. Larry Holmes is the champion.
Undefeated.
And Jerry Cooney is on the cover of Sports Illustrated saying, who do you have? The contender, or they don't even mention his name on the cover.
Larry Holmes is one of the greatest heavyweights of all time.
Not only did Sports Illustrated do that, but Time Magazine had a picture of Jerry Cooney and Sylvester Stallone as Rocky, because the Rocky movies were big. And this was in promotion for his fight against the champion. So 2 magazines had the contender,
big magazines,
and not the champion.
Tell them what happened.
Not only that, well, I have one more. The night of the fight, there was a phone in Jerry Cooney's locker room that was a direct line to the President of the United States. Larry Holmes did not have that in his locker room.
The champ, who was a record-breaking champion.
And who do you think was president at that time? 1982.
George W.
No,
wasn't it?
1982.
No, it was Ronald.
Ronald Reagan. Ronald Reagan wasn't trying to talk Larry Holmes. No. So Larry Holmes felt disrespected. Now, to Jerry Cooney's credit, he kept saying he didn't want to be called the Great White Hype. His managers kept pushing it. If you want to see an example of the movie, watch that Great White Hype with Samuel Jackson, Damon.
Many times.
I'm not talking to you. I'm talking to the people.
No.
That was really depicting Larry Holmes. Well, kind of. Because Larry Holmes was legit. Jerry Cooney was legitimate. Anyway, Larry Holmes knocked him out in the 3rd round. He
used him. Larry Holmes.
He brutalized him. He brutalized him.
Any true boxing critic knew that was going to happen, though. I mean, anyone that knew anything about boxing knew that was going to happen, but nobody wanted to admit it. The media even got the critics to believe.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, a boxing critic should have known. The media, of course, no, they just wanted to see a white heavyweight champion that we hadn't seen in a long time. Which brings us to number one, and it's the same thing. July 4th, 1910, and this was called the Fight of the Century. James Jeffries came out of retirement.
Bad idea.
Because he was the great champion prior to Jack Johnson. But Jack Johnson, a black man from Galveston, Texas, was beating people up. And what he really did wrong, not only was he beating white men up, he was dating white women.
That was his major problem.
And so they begged James Jeffrey, a beloved champ, to come out of retirement. He was reluctant, and
as he should have been,
because the fight, and he was the first one called the Great White Hope. And so Jack Johnson played with him. He played with him and then destroyed him.
And right before, it was on closed circuit television back then. Right before he knocked him out, this closed circuit went off because they didn't want to see this black man knock this white man out on national.
Was it on
television.
Closed circuit?
Yeah, they had. Yeah, it was closed circuit television. They filmed. That's why you can watch the film. It was filmed for closed circuit. Right before he knocked him out, it went out.
So that's the most significant, the biggest. I mean, it was a huge fight because everybody in the United States wanted to see that fight.
Yeah.
So that's number one. Jack Johnson knocking out James Jeffries, and James Jeffries, I'm sure he got mad at those folks. Why I let them talk me to come out of retirement?
He was just chilling for the money. He did it.
Yeah, you got
So my top five is a little different. I didn't know you were talking about most impactful and all meaning and all that. So my number five is Rumble in the Jungle, Muhammad Ali versus George Foreman. It kind of solidified Muhammad Ali as a legend. I mean, he was already a legend, but that kind of just gave him a higher status as a legend.
Right.
When he did that, because George Foreman at that time was looked at as unbeatable, Olympic gold medalist, knocking out everybody. That
it wasn't even close.
Yeah. So I mean, that's my number five. The Rumble in the Jungle, 1975, for the heavyweight title.
74, I think.
And on a side note, if you ever want to watch a good slugfest, what is it? George Foreman against Lyle.
Oh yeah. Was it Pat Lyle or?
Man, I can't remember his name. I think his name is Lyle something, but that is one of the best fights you can ever want to watch in your life. Number four, I got Sugar Ray Leonard versus Marvelous Marvin Hagler, 1987, for the WBC and Ring Magazine middleweight titles. Sugar Ray Leonard was one of the biggest stars in the world in sports. The Sprite guy, Olympic gold medalist. I mean, he was beloved by the media. Marvin Hagler was a workhorse, a guy who wasn't beloved by the media, but just as talented, just as great, one of the all-time great fighters.
Absolutely.
And they put on the classic. Sugar Ray got the decision, even though a lot of people believe that Marvelous Marvin Hagler won that fight.
They never got the rematch.
Yeah.
Marvin was frustrated with the boxing
world.
Yeah.
He retired after that. Moved to France. Okay, so number 3, we got Evander Holyfield versus Mike Tyson.
Which
1996, the first one, WBC heavyweight
I almost had that one.
title. This was one of the biggest fights for the culture.
Absolutely.
For our culture, for our age group, this was a huge fight. Both of them were extremely popular fighters.
Right.
I mean, both of them were very, very popular fighters. It's unique when when you have two great fighters with great skills like Terrence Crawford and Errol Spence. But even people who don't box know who Evander Holyfield and Mike Tyson are. So, I mean, this was a huge, huge, huge fight. And, of course, we know Evander Holyfield whooped a stroke on him. Gave him a good beating and knocked him out.
But it showed, this wasn't the first time, but it showed Mike Tyson's chin.
Yeah, Mike Tyson has a hell of a chin.
He had a chin.
So number 2, and maybe this should even be number 1, but I put it number 2, Floyd Mayweather versus Manny Pacquiao 2015 for the WBA, WBC, WBO, and Ring Magazine welterweight title.
Yeah.
Now this is another one. 2 fighters who go beyond boxing, who are popular beyond the ring. People who are not fans of boxing know who Floyd Mayweather and Manny Pacquiao are. They are probably 2 of the most popular boxers that have ever boxed.
And decorated.
For
the most decorated boxers.
I mean, they are extremely decorated. I think Pacquiao won a title in 8 divisions, which is ridiculous.
That is.
8 different divisions. Of course, Floyd Mayweather 50-0 undefeated. Now, the unfortunate thing, maybe the reason why this fight isn't number 1 is because it was probably 6 to 8 years past their prime, maybe 6 years past their prime.
That's why I didn't have it on my list.
So it didn't. It's not number 1, but still, it's still the biggest selling pay-per-view fight of all time.
Right.
And it's 2 of the greatest that ever did it. Fighting. Floyd got the decision. An uneventful fight. I mean, to true boxing fans, it
was a skill.
You enjoyed the skill that was displayed.
But for non-boxing folks, they just want to see people throw bombs.
So number 1, I have to have the Thriller in Manila.
All right.
Muhammad Ali versus Joe Frazier 3, 1975 WBC, WBA, and Ring Magazine titles. This was the rubber match between 2 of the greatest heavyweights of all time, and it was
ended.
It did not disappoint. Right. Muhammad Ali won. I say he won that fight by seconds.
Right.
Because anybody that knows, they beat each other to death almost in that ring.
They were never the same.
Joe Frazier's corner threw in the towel. Muhammad Ali, a lot of people don't know this who aren't real deep boxing fans. Muhammad Ali had given up. He told his corner, I'm done. I cannot go out there. But because Joe Frazier's corner beat him to the punch, Muhammad Ali won that fight.
Right. But Angelo Dundee, Ali's trainer, was like, no. He was trying to talk him into it.
Yeah.
But Muhammad Ali was like, I'm done. Joe Frazier didn't want to quit.
Towel, but
when his manager said, he was like,
no, I'm not going to let you do anymore. That fight, they were both in the hospital for weeks after that.
Yeah.
Probably a fight that man, it hurt both of them. It brutalized their bodies, but I'm putting it number 1.
I can see it. Yeah, that was big. I mean, unfortunately, Muhammad Ali kept on fighting after that. A lot.
Yeah, he
well after that.
Yeah.
Some others, let us know what you think. Some other huge fights. You can go on and on. The Tyson Fury and Deontay Wilder.
Yeah, that has to be one of the biggest in the last maybe 10 years, I would say.
If boxing were as popular today as it was even 20 years ago, this would probably be number 1.
Yeah, it probably would be. Because, I mean, it was the importance was as big as Tyson, Holyfield,
right?
Holyfield, Riddick Bowe, Lennox Lewis, Holyfield. I mean, it was that important for these 2 champions. I mean, it was a big fight, and it solidified Tyson Fury as one of the all-time greats.
Yeah, because he won. He won the that last fight. I mean, he showed that he was clearly the better. A lot bigger. But some others, you could talk about Sugar Ray and Roberto Duran because Sugar Ray, of course, was the golden boy. Everybody loved him. And Roberto Duran was a hero in Panama. And some would argue, still say Roberto Duran is the greatest lightweight of all time. Now, Roberto Duran, he ran into some trouble. He lost to Marvin Hagler, Sugar Ray, and Tommy Hearns, but he moved up in weight.
Yeah,
that was probably his mistake. He was a lightweight, and he moved up to welterweight. And of course, Hagler was a middleweight.
Yeah.
So that was another big fight. You could also talk about Tommy Hearns and Marvelous Marvin Hagler.
Greatest
in
round
their
of all
war.
time.
A war.
One round.
Yeah.
One
Man,
round.
It was.
And it's one of the most talked about fights of its era.
Yeah, it was a great fight. So let us know what you think. Other big fights.
Roy
in
Jones
boxing
and
history.
John Ruiz.
That was big because it had been 100 years since someone had moved up from what was it, middleweight?
Junior. He started at junior middleweight.
Yeah, to win a heavyweight title. That hadn't been done in 100 years. So that, of course, was a huge fight. There's some others out there. So let us know what you think. If we missed anything, put it in the comments. Every Tuesday we drop a new episode. So please subscribe to our YouTube channel. Just hit the subscribe button. And you can check us out most places you get your podcast. Every Tuesday we drop a new episode.
Peace.
I'm of the modest. Here I am. I come. That's where I'm from. I say I'm going.